Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Electromagnetic Pyramid. Historical records tell us that when the Great Pyramid of Giza was first constructed 4,500 years ago, it had a capstone of pure gold. This has never been confirmed, but many scholars believe this as fact rather than speculation. The pyramid may have had a massive triangular capstone made of solid gold, but others have guessed there was a massive throne placed on a platform at the top of the pyramid, from which the pharaohs could look out over their empire. After all, the Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest human structure on the planet, so the view from the top must have been amazing. It stood a whopping 481 feet tall for nearly 4,000 years, and it was only dethroned by St. Paul's Cathedral in 1221 AD. But what if there wasn't a golden capstone or a throne at the top of the pyramid? What if instead there was an electromagnetic sphere attached to the pyramid's tip that helped it function as a giant ancient energy plant? This theory was most recently put forth by architect Miguel Pérez Sanchez, who says the sphere may have symbolized the Eye of Horus. Some even think Nikola Tesla was trying to replicate what the ancient Egyptians did with his own inventions. Nikola Tesla was the kind of genius that only comes around once in a millennium. He's been credited with coming up with the idea of smartphones, Wi-Fi, the AC power supply system, and so much more. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Tesla believed energy came from the planet itself. In 1905, he filed a patent in the US called The Art of Transmitting Electrical Energy Through the Natural Medium. In this patent, Tesla had designs for a generator that would be used to tap into the ionosphere in order to collect energy. The generator was designed to be an almost exact mimic of the Giza Pyramid. It's even known today as Tesla's Electromagnetic Pyramid. Tesla likely believed the pyramid was a giant battery, and that at its peak was an electromagnetic sphere used to channel the Earth's energy. But if you ask any modern archaeologist, they'll likely tell you the pyramid is nothing but a huge tomb. What do you think about all this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Number 9. Inca Kamanya. Almost nothing is known of the bizarre construction we call the Inca Kamanya, or the rest of the Inca. All the information we have about this mysterious monument comes from ancient legends. It was said that on the way into the sacred city of Yunguyo, the Inca royalty would stop here at the Inca Kamanya to rest at what looks like a giant stone staircase. Only then could they proceed to the Temple of the Sun in Titicaca to give worship to the gods. The Inca Kamanya is a massive staircase made of solid rock with seats, niches, and misshapen steps carved from a giant chunk of compressed ash. The material used to build the monument was likely quarried at the same site where Pumapunku and Tiwanaku got their stones. Some have suggested that the stone was quarried from the Kapia Hill site, after which it was used to build several Inca ceremonial structures. Even today, people use the Inca Kamanya when they need to sit, take a rest, and re-energize. Something about sitting on these cold stones seems to renew a person's energy, suggesting that the site could be imbued with some type of magical properties. In fact, there are a lot of things that still happen at the Inca Kamanya these days. The local Aymaras still consider the site to be sacred and use it as the location for their annual New Year celebration. It's likely that the Inca used it for their ceremonies as well, though some experts have suggested it was nothing but a simple auditorium for outside entertainment. There we go again, ruining everyone's fun. And now for number 8, but first, it's shout-out time! I want to say big thank you to Jared Quinney and Amar0707. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and join the family. Number 8. Gigantia. Gigantia is one of the most mysterious megalithic temple complexes in the world. It can be found on the Zagra Plateau, which itself is on the island of Gozo in Malta. Amazingly, evidence of human habitation here dates back 7,000 years. Early Neolithic people got in their primitive boats and paddled out to the island around 5000 BC. Nobody knows exactly what they did out there on the island, but they were joined later by more waves of settlers. and by about 4000 BC, they were building massive complexes. Gigantia is one of the most impressive structures that's still standing. It consists of a pair of stone temples and a third temple that was never finished for some reason. Locals call it the Giant's Tower, and archaeologists believe the temples were constructed over a period of nearly 1,000 years. The first was built in 3600 BC, and the last one was left incomplete around 2900 BC. This might not seem all that old, but compared to some more recent sites, it really is ancient. These dates make Gigantia the second oldest existing man-made religious structure in the world, and it's one of the first freestanding stone buildings ever made. What a lot of people don't realize is that Malta is one of the oldest places on the planet. There are many other megalithic sites in the Republic of Malta, many of which are stone temples scientists have never been able to explain. Nobody knows why, but the Neolithic humans who lived here took to building complex religious sanctuaries long before the ancient Egyptians even existed. Just like other seemingly cultic buildings in Malta, Gigantia's temples align with the celestial cycles. Their entrances are lit up brilliantly during the sunrise on either equinox. There was also a lot of worshipping happening inside the temples. Worship included animal sacrifice, but it's unclear who exactly was being worshipped. Some experts suggest a fertility goddess, but there are no real clues to say who the gods, god, or goddess of these ancient people were. As if all of this wasn't mysterious enough, there is one more thing to understand about Gigantia. It was built by a group known as the Maltese Temple Culture. They vanished from the island about halfway through the 3rd millennium BC, explaining why they never finished the third temple. Scientists don't know why they left, only that they disappeared as if they never existed at all. Number 7. The Broken Menhir. The mystery of the broken menhir of Er Gra is going to blow your mind. It's one of the least known wonders of the ancient world, but surprisingly, it's also the most important. It was the biggest megalith ever constructed in human history. This giant stone monument was raised in France around 4700 BC, a whopping 6,700 years ago. This was long before the world's first cities in Mesopotamia, and before the first civilized societies began to take shape. It was so long ago that the existence of the Er Gra menhir makes no sense. It stood for about 700 years, then for unknown reasons it fell over and shattered. It broke into 4 main pieces, and to this day, they are still lying on the ground in rural France. The megalith weighed an impressive 280 tons. Even with all our modern technology, machines would have a difficult time moving something so heavy across the landscape. It could be done, but it would take a lot of machinery and a lot of skilled people who knew what they were doing. Yet somehow, prehistoric people carved, shaped, transported, and constructed the 280-ton monument when they hadn't even figured out how to build a wheel yet. The fact that this happened, which it definitely did, makes it the most remarkable engineering feat ever. For a while, scientists weren't even sure the monument ever stood upright. There was speculation that it just couldn't be done. But more recently, archaeologists have proved that it did stand, and it did topple and break. The monument stood 68 feet high. It was so tall that it would have dominated the landscape, and people would have been able to see it from miles away. Its surface was also covered in detailed petroglyphs. The same people who shaped the stone covered it in mysterious symbols and pictures, all of which have been destroyed by years out in the open. Number 6. The Leah Fail. One of the most sacred sites in all of Ireland is the Hill of Tara in County Meath. The hill looks like any other green hill in the vast Irish countryside, but in reality, it's far from ordinary. The Hill of Tara, or the King's Seat, was once the place where the High Kings of Ireland ruled over their subjects. Long before Dublin existed, the Hill of Tara was the capital of Ireland. This was a very long time ago, with the earliest evidence of construction here dating back to 3200 BC. The hill was used by the High Kings so long ago that nothing remains today except a handful of monuments, some creepy burial chambers, and piles of rubble. But one thing that does remain is the Leah Fail, or the so-called Stone of Destiny. It's an extremely strange pillar of rock at the very top of the hill that was supposedly brought to Ireland by the Tuatha De Danann. If you're not familiar with Irish mythology, here's a quick recap on the Tuatha De Danann, Ireland's mythical race. The Tuatha De Danann are often depicted in Irish mythology as kings and queens, as well as heroes, brave travelers, fierce warriors, and wise druids. The one thing they have in common is that they all possess incredible supernatural powers. They also live in the otherworld, a kind of mirror realm where mortals dare not tread. You can almost think of them as the Aesir gods from Norse mythology, like Thor, Odin, and Loki. But now let's get back to the Leah Fail, the magic stone that's still standing at the hill of Tara. Legend has it that the stone was brought from the city of Phaelus, one of the 4 magical cities that were located in the Northern Isles. When the Tuatha De Danann first arrived in Ireland, they came with the stone, a magical spear, and a magic sword, as well as a cauldron capable of feeding an entire army. These were extremely sacred relics, and the only one we know that really exists is the Leah Fail. But there are those that are skeptical regarding the stone's magical properties. Not everyone believes the proudly standing pillar is the original Stone of Destiny. Locals say the one there today was only put up in the 1820s by locals in commemoration of someone who died in an 18th century rebellion. There are also records from earlier in the 18th century that say the stone had been lying on its side for generations before someone turned it upright. Number 5. The Laladoff Plate. An archaeological expedition in 1937 turned up 716 granite discs in the Bayan Har Mountains of northwest China. These discs became known as the Dropa stones, and one of them is called the Laladoff Plate. Most mainstream archaeologists agree that they are fakes, but not everyone is convinced. Many believe these mysterious granite discs tell the tale of an intergalactic meeting that happened on Earth 12,000 years ago. The discs are covered in hieroglyphics, showing images of everything from star maps to alien mummies with elongated skulls. Interpretations of these stones and plates suggest that primitive humans witnessed an extraterrestrial crash landing. But in reality, it's hard to know the exact truth about the stones. French ufologist Jacques Vallée says the Dropa stones are nothing but a hoax. However, the Academy of Prehistory in Beijing supposedly took them very seriously. Chinese archaeologists translated the markings on the discs and delivered a hypothesis. They claimed the markings were made by the extraterrestrials themselves in the days, weeks, and years after their crash landing on Earth. The conclusions were even published in an academic journal by archaeologist Sum Nui, and not surprisingly, the publication received extreme ridicule. Sum Nui was treated so poorly after he published his results that he was exiled from the country. Then, shortly after, he died in Japan. The mysterious discs do show aliens interacting with humans, but no one has ever been able to say definitively whether they were fake or if they were really produced by alien technology. In 1966, some of the discs were allegedly shipped to Moscow to be studied by Soviet scientists. And in 1974, Austrian engineer Ernst Wegerer got a hold of 2 discs in China and photographed them. But by 1994, the discs were all completely gone, and nobody has seen one since. What do you think happened to the Dropa stones? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe. Number 4. The Shark Teeth Mystery. Scientists discovered a small collection of fossilized shark teeth in a very unusual place. They were found in an archaeological site that's 2,900 years old, located in Jerusalem's City of David. The cache of shark teeth was found roughly 50 miles from where scientists would expect to find such fossils. The teeth are about 80 million years old and should have been closer to an ancient ocean. And for this reason, scientists think they may have been part of a collection from the days of the biblical King Solomon. Researcher Dr. Thomas Tutkin from the University of Mainz says the fossils weren't in their original setting, which means they must have been moved. Dr. Thomas believes the shark teeth were very important to someone in this biblical city, but he's not sure why. In fact, Thomas isn't sure why similar collections of fossils have been found in other parts of Israel as well. But let's get back to the actual discovery. The teeth were found buried underneath the foundation of an Iron Age house. Someone mixed the teeth with the material used to fill the foundation at the bottom of the house in the city of David. They were mixed with other materials like fish bones and food waste, as well as scraps of letters and packages. It appears as though they came from the garbage of someone very important. And in ancient days, trash was often used as a construction material. Dr. Tutkin thinks the ancient shark teeth may have been part of a government official's personal fossil collection. The teeth then got thrown away with a bunch of their papers and food scraps, then wound up in a landfill where they were used to fill in the foundation of a new house. It's not 100% confirmed, but this is the best theory we have right now for the origins of the mysterious shark teeth. Number 3. The tomb of Senen Moot. American archaeologist Herbert Windlock was behind the discovery of Senen Moot's tomb between 1925 and 1927. The tomb is officially called TT353, and it's located near Deir el-Bahari and the Temple of Hatshepsut. According to legend, Senen Moot was the one who designed and constructed the mighty temple, which continues to be one of the most impressive in all of Egypt today. And although his burial chambers may not have held the greatest relics ever found, he did have an impressive ceiling. His tomb was very well decorated, showing that he wasn't just a friend of Queen Hatshepsut, a government official and an architect. He was also a brilliant astronomer. Senen Moot and Hatshepsut lived in the 18th dynasty. Senen Moot was buried in his tomb around 1473 BC. Like any other government official during the days of Queen Hatshepsut, he was given a generous burial with a vast tomb. What makes his tomb so unique and exciting is that the walls and ceiling are covered in celestial diagrams. Panels representing the constellations, lunar cycles, and images of deities can be found strewn along the interior of the tomb. But there is one very crucial thing missing from all the paintings of the cosmos in Senen Moot's tomb. It's such an important missing piece that it's baffled scientists ever since they started interpreting the images. On the southern ceiling of the tomb is a painted map of the sky showing distant planets like Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. However, nowhere in his tomb can the planet Mars be found, the heavenly body closest to Earth. For some reason or another, it's just not there at all, as if the great astronomer had somehow forgotten about the third rock from the sun. Number 2. The Aztec Crystal Skulls. There are fake Aztec crystal skulls on display in museums across the globe, and all of them can likely be traced back to a single man. But are the crystal skulls really all fakes? Is there not at least one ancient crystal skull that scientists can't explain? Well, let's get into it. The crystal skulls have been on display in museums for decades. Some of them are tiny, no bigger than a small amulet, while others are the size of a bowling ball. But in the 1990s, anthropologist Jane Walsh from the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History began to grow suspicious of the skull's authenticity. Her suspicions were triggered after the Smithsonian received an Aztec crystal skull from an anonymous donor. The donor claimed the skull once belonged to a Mexican dictator, but was originally made by the Aztec hundreds of years ago. Jane Walsh was quick to dismiss the skull as a fake, saying its proportions weren't right and that it obviously wasn't a real human skull. Then Jane started investigating the other skulls found in museums across the world. One of these skulls was right there in the Smithsonian Institution's collection. It appeared in the 1800s, supposedly delivered from a museum in Mexico. A catalog card from the 1950s said the object was a total fake and that it was created using modern jewelry tools and techniques. The investigators in the 1950s even left behind the name of the potential suspect responsible for the phony skull, Eugene Boben. As Jane continued her investigation, she found more and more fake crystal skulls, even one in the extremely prestigious British Museum, that came from Eugene Vauban in the late 19th century. As it turns out, Eugene Vauban was a genius. He tricked museums from here to Timbuktu into taking his fake Aztec skulls. He even created an entire mythology around these objects. But because he died a long time ago, we'll never know how he did it or why. And all these years later, people still believe in the mystical power of the crystal skulls. Number 1. The Shugborough Inscription. The Shugborough Inscription has been torturing scientists and linguistic experts for years. On the grounds of Shugborough Hall in England, there stands something called the Shepherd's Monument. The monument itself isn't that old and was only created in the 18th century. On its face is a carving of artist Nicolas Poussin's famous Arcadian shepherds, and underneath the engraving is a series of letters. The letters OUOSVAVV are etched onto the monument without any indication of what they might mean. On the left and slightly below the engraving is the letter D, and on the other side is the letter M. The D and the M seem to frame the main inscription, but offer no clues to explain its meaning. It's been a long time since experts realized the inscription might be some kind of code, but nobody has ever been able to crack it. The smartest ciphers in the world were driven to madness and forced to give up on trying to break the uncrackable code. Even famous geniuses like Charles Dickens and Charles Darwin briefly attempted to understand the Shugborough inscription, but found it didn't make any sense and ultimately gave up. One of the most interesting theories is that the inscription doesn't mean anything at all. Many believe the 7 mystery letters were put there to provide an unsolvable mystery. It could also be that the letters were meant to be a hint as to the whereabouts of the Holy Grail. One legend says it was the Knights Templar who made the inscription, or at least one of their descendants, seeing as they were already dead 500 years before the inscription was made. It could be that some distant surviving Templar placed a final clue as to the location of the legendary Holy Grail. Thanks for watching! Do you have any theories to explain these ancient mysteries? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. See you next time. Bye!